Algebra 2 skills number 50, box and whisker plots. So quartiles is the first thing we'll talk about here, and we have this set of 7 numbers where the median clearly is the red number, 57. But then it separates the data into 2 sets, this green set and this purple set. And 57 itself we're going to strike out because it's dead center. And we then calculate the median of the green numbers and the median of the purple numbers and have names for those. So the median is 57. The median of the green numbers, the first set, is called Q1 or lower quartile. So in this case, that's clearly 53. And for the purple numbers, we call it Q3 or the upper quartile. It's 59. The median is Q2. You just don't hear it used very often. You also hear this IQR, interquartile range. So if you remember range, the overall range is the max minus the min, or the interquartile range is the Q3 minus Q1. So it's a simple formula. You just need Q3 and Q1 to use it. It's also sometimes called the middle 50% of the data. So looking at an actual box plot, same set. Here's the box plot. So the minimum, 51, is here. You can see the plot there. The maximum is on the other side. And 53, the Q1, remember that from the previous side, it's the beginning of the box. 57 is the median, which is this slash in the middle of the box. And then 59 is Q3. Okay, so one thing you have to understand is the median is usually not halfway between the quartiles, and that bothers some people. But remember, that's because it's a positional issue, not a value issue. Okay, so positionally, 57 is halfway between 53 and 59. They're equally spaced between them, but their values are not. So that's one thing that bothers people. And usually the slash there is going to be to one side or the other. And these whiskers over here are often not the same length. They look like they're about the same length here, and they what are they? So here this whisker is only 2 units, and this whisker is also 2. So they are for this case, but often they're not. It just depends on what your numbers are as they're spread out. So some questions you'll see associated with box plots. Here's a box plot down here. Notice also has a nice scale below it. So you want a good reference, and you want the reference to go below the smallest number and above the biggest and be evenly spaced and easy to read. But find the IQR. So remember, that's Q3 minus Q1. So just find Q3 and Q1. And we'll get to that in just a minute. And then it says what percent of the data lies between 55 and 85. So the IQR, so back to A, is 75. So they go by fives, as you can see. So 75 is Q3, and 55 is Q1. So you just subtract those. So the actual IQR is 20. And when it comes to these percent questions, the way the box and whisker plot is set up is 25% of the data is on this first whisker, this line. There's 25% of the data. 25% is in the first half of the box, 25% is in the second half of the box, and 25% is on this last whisker. And it may not look that way. It may not be looked to scale because of the lengths of the whiskers and whatnot, but again, that's all about how compact the data is around certain points. So to answer that question between 55 and 85, here's 55, here's 85. That's 25%, 25%, 25%. So 75% of the data is between 55 and 85. Second example you'll sometimes see, and these come from Delta Math, these box and whisker plots, by the way. But sometimes you'll see these to be used for comparative purposes, so you have the same scale, but whatever these are measuring, you can, maybe it's 2 different classes and measuring whatever they're doing for a particular project, but you can use box and whisker plots to get a good look at how the classes compare. So this question says, which data set has the highest spread, which has the highest center? Well, the spread would be Z, and that's not just simply which has the biggest range. It's more than that. It does have the biggest range, max minus min. It's wider, but it also has the larger IQR in the middle. This box is longer than that box. Y seems to be clustered around 19, 18 area, where this has more spread or variety. When it comes to center, now when we say center, we're not talking specifically about just the median or just one number. We're just talking about in general, the kind of the middle of the data. So basically, who did better or who had longer or larger measures, that's Y. Okay, even though it has a smaller spread, it's clustered around 18, 19, 20, where this one's kind of all over the place. They do have the same max, but looking at class Y, 75% of the data is bigger than 17. For this class, 75% of the data is bigger than 13. So Y looks like it has the bigger center. So box of whisker plots.